Thank you very much, Dr. Noni Purnomo and our three panelists. Very informative and a lot of good discussions. And as you mentioned, yes, the private sector and stakeholders, engaging with stakeholders is very important. We will be having the closing remarks. So we do have a couple of minutes left. And if I can request our panelists to please help in still answering some of the very interesting questions that remain unanswered in the Q&A box. So now we will move to the closing session. And I have the pleasure of inviting our Director General for the Southeast Asia Regional Department of ADB, Mr. Ramesh Subramaniam. Mr. Subramaniam oversees ADB's relationship and all sovereign work in the ASEAN countries and Timor-Leste. He has been with ADB for over 25 years, and he has worked across the Asia-Pacific region. Having represented ADB on various World Economic Forum, Global Future Councils, he now serves as the co-chair of the ASEAN Hub of the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Investment Partnership. Infrastructure financing and mobilizing long-term private capital for development are among his primary areas of interest. So DG Ramesh, I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Karma, for that kind intro, and distinguished participants, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Let me keep my remarks very short. End of the workshop. In fact, it looks like from the dynamic discussions in the last session, you need more time. On behalf of ADB as well as the organizers, let me share a few takeaways. In the first opening session, there were 4 specific points that came out. First is that for all of the countries in the Asia and Pacific region, rebuilding sustainable economies, particularly in the post-pandemic context, it needs science-based solutions to reduce air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, while what is very important is the need to ensure a just transition. Second, applying science and technology is crucial in the fight against air pollution and climate change. And in this regard, improving the scientific evidence base for climate and clean air actions and the scale-up and rapid deployment of clean technologies will enable national governments to meet the SDGs as well as the NDCs, so the nationally determined contributions in support of the Paris Climate Accord. Third, accounting for the benefits of clean air actions that address climate change would strengthen the justification for investment in climate mitigation measures, which otherwise would remain unfunded. This is a critical issue that's emerging in many developing countries across the region, in ASEAN as well as across the region, as well as not just in Asia and Pacific, but in other regions as well, particularly again in the post-pandemic context. And finally, in the opening session, you looked at the need for the importance of accelerating the adoption of clean technology in the Asia and Pacific region. And what does it require, particularly the use of innovative and market-based instruments and pricing policies. Now, we also, the third panel just finished. We had 2 enriching panels prior to that. So in the first session, which focused on international perspectives and national policies for clean air and carbon neutrality, this session, the discussion stressed on the importance of knowledge sharing and regional cooperation in general, given the public goods nature of the issues that we are looking at, particularly what are the ways to integrate air quality and climate change policies and actions to reap the co-benefits. And here knowledge sharing is very critical. Some countries are doing well, but others do need the knowledge and innovative solutions. So knowledge sharing is very critical, which is something that at ADB we are focusing on, and many participants here are focusing on that as well. And the second, given the public goods nature, managing air quality, following an airshed or a regional approach is going to be critical, because as we know, air pollution moves across countries' national boundaries. The second session, which is on the role of research and technology for promoting clean air and climate mitigation, we learned the importance of investments and technological innovations in tracking emissions of air pollutants and GHG, such as through remote sensing to address the lack of data on emission inventories and to support decision making. And the second point that came out there in that session was the need for scaling up clean technology solutions in key sectors, particularly power generation, transportation, and the industry sector broadly, including micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Waste management was particularly mentioned as well. And then scaling up in these sectors is key to meeting country pledges to peak GHG emissions and to reach the net zero emissions targets. Now, this should be an integral program and the focus of all development programs. In ADB, for instance, in Southeast Asia region, we are calling it the 3M approach. First is mainstreaming climate change, second is mobilizing resources, and the third is to take it and messaging. As was mentioned in the last session, behavioral changes are also quite important. And finally, in the third session that just completed on public-private partnership and stakeholder engagement, we learned that public participation and overall stakeholder engagement is quite critical to the success of clean air and climate action planning and implementation. And here, stakeholders from the public sector, academia, industry, NGOs, financing institutions, and development institutions need to be fully engaged if we are to achieve the SDGs as well as the Paris Climate Agreement targets. Now here, as we heard in the quite enriching discussions, effectiveness of regulations is very critical. You also have clear need for absorption of technical solutions. And finally, the need for behavioral evolution or behavioral modifications is also highlighted. And overall, so looking at the very successful webinar, I would say we've learned that while air pollution and carbon emissions are challenging issues, there are also lots of opportunities and solutions with the rapid advancement in data collection methods and technological innovations. So finally, on behalf of the Indonesia Academy of Sciences, the S20 Secretariat, Clean Air Asia, and the Asian Development Bank, let me thank all the speakers, moderators, and panelists for a fantastic webinar. And I'm sure we'll be taking with us lots of takeaways from this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, DG Ramesh, for very nicely wrapping up all the key messages and very concisely capturing all the rich discussions that we've had over the course of the opening session and the three technical panel discussions. So with this, we wrap up the webinar for today. And again, ADB together with G20, S20, the Indonesian Academy of Science and Clean Air Asia would like to thank all our moderators and our panelists for the excellent moderation and the points raised in the discussion. I see that we are already getting some good feedback from our audience in the chat box. So I think there is a lot of new information and some good discussion that we've had, and hopefully we can convert some of those into actions. So a final reminder to please answer the post-event evaluation survey. The link is provided in the chat box, and we will be also sharing this along with the link to the Dev Asia page, which will have all the materials and the recording of the session today. So thank you all very much. And thank you also to the audience for the very good questions. It's a shame that we did not have more time to answer all of your questions properly, but time is always short. So thank you all very much again, and see you all in the next event. Bye-bye.